Hey, y'all. You in Tennessee now. Here in Tennessee, we tell it like it is, even if it takes the hide. You ever heard that before? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to tell you 3 things that you may not know, or you may not, because you know there's a difference between knowing and getting it. 2 different things. Okay, all right. So, thing number 1, and some of you need to pay very careful attention to this. The human body and the human brain, the default setting is good, vigorous, vibrant health. For all of y'all, good health is the default setting of the human body. The human body, my friend and I think agree, is wonderfully and amazingly made. Who in here thinks God is stupid? Your body was perfectly made, only to the degree that you ate junk. And you maybe didn't even know it was junk, but that's what mucked it up. That's what got you where you are now. It didn't start that way. It started perfectly healthy. And let's do 4 things, okay? I'm going to add a little extra thing here. Your brain, your mind, is part of your body. They're connected. So anybody suffering from a mental health issue, your brain's part of your body. It's not magically different. It's not off there in the corner somewhere. It's in your body. Your brain is a metabolic organ. So everything I'm saying applies to mental health as well as physical health. And I think this young lady that just spoke, wow, Carrie, dude. I know she's proud of you, and I know you're proud of her. Did you hear how she talked about her social health and her mental health? You've heard that, right? There was nothing wrong with her at all. She's perfect. But she thought, all these things are wrong with me. My stupid skin, I get nervous, I can't do anything. That was all the food. It was all the food. Your body, even you sitting out there going, no, Dr. Barry don't understand about my body. My body done betrayed me. My body hates me. No, your body has the ability to heal. When you remove the slow poison, which is the food that we're told is food, I had a little problem with experts' definition of food. Food should not make you fat. It should not make you sick. It should not make you inflamed. Food should nourish you in every way you can mean that word. It should nourish you. Body and soul, body and brain. Number 1, your body's default setting is good health. Even you. But it takes some tissues longer to heal than others. If you cut your skin, it's healed in 2 weeks, right? If you get some viral infection and it messes up your guts, they're better in a week. The neurons in your brain take many months or even years to heal. Some things take longer than others. But if there's nothing you take away from today, it is that there is hope. You can heal. It may be slow, but what's the damn alternative? Yeah. Anybody ready to get in the box and lay down? Because if you're not in the box under the ground, you ain't done yet. And you can absolutely get better, get healthier, get stronger, get mentally healthier, all that can happen. You just got to keep going. You got to keep doing it. And you got to keep reaching out and forming connections with your fellow humans. Humanity, Homo sapiens sapien, we are a social species. We're a tribal species. I can't get over her talk, Carrie. She had pulled away from all of it. She was not comfortable with any of it. Going to her school, you've been at school from kindergarten up probably, right? Third grade up, and still is freaking her out. That's not normal. That's the food. As soon as she started feeding her body real human food, proper human food, she became social. She's up here speaking in front of 200 people. What 17-year-old does that? How can you not be inspired by that? Fact number 2 that you may not know or you may not get. Doctors are just dudes and chicks. I want you to get that. That doctor in that white coat with the stethoscope, ubiquitous stethoscope, got to have a stethoscope so people know you're the doctor. Are just dudes and chicks. They're just people who had a dream. They went to med school. They're just like you. They put their pants on just like you. They scratch their butt just like you do. They're just dudes and chicks. They're nothing special. They're not demigods. They're not some different species. They're not some different class of human. They're just dudes and chicks. They've got many, many things wrong, many of which I've talked about on my channel. Lobotomies, electroconvulsive shock therapy, so many things in the mental health space. They've just gotten terribly, disastrously wrong. Back when the founding fathers of this country were alive, you know what the main medicines they treated people with? Yeah, they would make you bleed, either with a scalpel or a leech, arsenic, mercury, and cadmium. That was, the little black bag they used to have. That's what was in there. Four different poisons and something to stab you with to make you bleed. That was it. Now, do you think, let's go back in time to 1776. And there's a doctor with his little black bag going, and that's what happened with President Washington, right? They bled him to death. He literally had a sore throat, and they just kept bloodletting and exsanguinated President George Washington. That's what happened. Everybody had so much respect for that doctor. That doctor walked in, and the people just parted like the Red Sea. Let the doctor through. He's just a dude. He's doing what he was taught, but he killed the president. This is what you have to understand when you go see your doctor. There are things they absolutely know. If you break a bone, go see your doctor. If you get a 3rd degree burn, you probably should have went and saw your doctor. If you get a severe infection, go see your doctor. But if what you got is a chronic disease and you haven't yet adopted a proper human diet, your doctor's not going to be able to help you, at least not many. Now, there's several doctors here today, and when I first spoke at an event like this years ago, I was the only doctor in the room. And now every time I go to one of these things, there's 3, 5, 10, 15, in some cases 30 doctors in the room, nurses, pharmacists, physical therapists, nutritionists, optometrists. They're all coming. They're all one by one. Once because when a doctor sees one patient that says, hey, I have this long list of medical conditions like Harry, and I started eating nothing but meat, and it all went away. Doctor's like, damn, he's crazy. That's crazy. Crazy talk. But then that doctor, like I told you yesterday, then what happens when the second person comes and tells the same story? And then a month later, here comes 2 more telling the same story. at some point, any doctor with any damn sense at all, when you've seen enough people with the same thing, either keto or carnivore, all this stuff went away, you go home and you do what everybody else does. You get on the internet and you look it up. And you go, oh, I didn't realize that this was actually a thing. Oh, wait, there's research about this? I've never heard of this. Let me look into this. And then what happens next is, once that doctor sees it, once that doctor hears the bell ring, you can't ever unhear that. You can't ever unsee that. And then that doctor does something that y'all don't know about because they keep it to themselves. They try carnivore. And then that's it. For the rest of their career, every patient that they ever meet and interact with gets taught about a proper human diet. That's how it goes. Now, thing 3 that you probably know, but I want you to really get it. Drug companies are in business to make a profit. Now, you're like, well, yeah, duh. But here's the thing. If a drug company CEO says, we're really fleecing people, we really need to quit this. We really need to stop trying to treat and just manage chronic disease. We need to start curing stuff. They would be fired immediately. I'm not joking. And so he'd be like, we'll probably make less money, but we're going to start curing things. That's literally, in our current legal system, it's illegal. The shareholders could sue and win. There's multiple examples of this in the legal literature. It is their job to make money for the shareholders. A few years back, this has been 20 years now, they came up with Harvoni for hepatitis C. Would literally cure hepatitis C. And I don't know, maybe 1 million people have been cured of hepatitis C. The investment bankers went to the pharmaceutical company and said, look, huzzah, you cured people, that's great. Good, go you, but that's a terrible business model. And if you continue down that course, we're probably not going to invest anymore. We want you to develop drugs that people have to take every day for life. Because you see how that's a good business model. Okay? So now, knowing those 3 things, you can put all 3 of those together. And you got the doctors in the middle who are just dudes and chicks. Just like you. They're stuck because they were educated by the drug companies. When I was a 3rd-year resident, a drug rep from the Rocephin was the drug. He gave me a $250 textbook. That was the last year they were able to actually give doctors gifts like that. And I was a 3rd-year resident, and I was like, I wanted that book, and he's like, yeah, you can take this one. I'm like, because Gilts, those textbooks were expensive, and you were broke as a joke in med school. He just gave it to me. Now, guess what? I was just a dude. Guess what my favorite antibiotic was for the next 10 years? You could come with a stick stuck in your leg and you got a shot of Rocephin. This is human nature. They know how to play the doctors. And then the doctors, they got bills, they got loans, they got mortgages, they got car payments, they got a spouse that's it's just their life is just like your life. It's no different. They got 7 minutes. They're going to get $35 for that. They got to see as many people a day as possible. They don't have time to talk about diet with you. You shouldn't be depending on your doctor to talk about your diet. If your doctor even mentions diet, most of the time they don't because they don't want to talk about it because that's a 10-minute, 15-minute conversation. If your doctor asks you about your diet, say, look, I'm eating a whole food, real, sugar-free, all natural diet. That's what you're going to tell them from this day forward. That's true. It's exactly what you're eating. And And you can even go into a little more detail. I'm eating ancestrally appropriate. I'm eating the stuff that humans have eaten for thousands of years. Because that's also true. But you don't necessarily have to say the C word. Because that's going to ruin your doctor's day. Because they're like, okay, here goes 20 minutes. While they try to convince you to eat a plant-based diet. Because they're just dudes and chicks. They don't know any better than you do. Okay? What I'm recommending on my YouTube videos and here to you today is not some weird radioactive chemical soup that's made in some kind of chemical factory. I'm just saying let's eat the food that humans have eaten for hundreds of thousands of years. That's as simple as it is. When you do that, acne goes away, don't it? Yeah? Depression goes away, don't it? Yeah. How many people have reversed their type 2 diabetes? Yeah. How many in the process of reversing it right now? Because now you know. Right. All of it starts to go back to normal. What's normal? Healthy. That's normal. The longer you do it, the closer you get to healthy. The more healthy you get. Does that make sense? Now, I love what you said about community. It's very, very important because some of us have a supportive spouse and we have a support family and friends are like, yeah, carnivore, let's do it. And some of us don't. And you may be one of those people who don't. And so we actually have a community with thousands of people from all over the world. We've got tribe members from 6 different continents in our Proper Human Diet community. We don't have anybody from Antarctica yet. We're working on it. There's some research scientists in there. We're trying to get one. If you're in our private community, would you stand up? Who do we have here? Yeah. Hey guys. So if you need support, if you need that, if your spouse is like, that's stupid. If your mama or your daddy are like, nah, fine, we're here for you. We got you. But now if you got good support, then you do you. Or if you're like me, if you're like a mountain lion, you're like, I don't need no damn support. That's fine too. You just do it. But if you need it, it's here. Okay? I don't know how long I've got, Carrie. I'd be happy if anybody's got any questions.
As long as you want.
If anybody's got any questions? I love answering questions because when I answer her question, I might answer a question you didn't even know you had.
I just want to know, how did you get started and why?
How I got started and why. So, when I was growing up, I was very slender. I could not gain weight at all. I looked like a white Ethiopian. Just a beanpole. And then, about 35, I started to gain weight. And I was working in the emergency department, 12-hour shifts, and then I would often have clinic the next day. And so I lived in scrubs. And scrubs have a drawstring. Big, long drawstring. And so I'm 6'3", so I wore extra large, and I had to really cinch them in, boy, and have the string hanging halfway down my leg. And as the years went by, that string kept getting shorter and shorter and shorter, but I was wearing the same size damn pants. And I knew I'd gained a little weight, but I thought, well, I'm tall, I'd probably carry it very well. Until one day I got on the scale. I think my nurse, Wendy, said, you need to go weigh. Your ass is getting big. And so I did, and I weighed 297 pounds. I was like, dang, that's a lot. Almost 300 pounds. And so I said, we better do some lab work. And we did, and I was pre-diabetic. My A1C was 6.1. I was moving straight to type 2 diabetes. Terrible heartburn, like the doctor mentioned. Just a whole list of aches and pains and yucky crap that just not worth talking about. And so I tried the American Diabetes Association diet. I had the PDF that I handed to all my patients. I'm like, well, I'm almost diabetic. I might as well do that. So I started doing the ADA diet, and I started jogging 3 days a week. And I'd rather be poked in the eye with a stick than jog. Hate it. hate to jog. But I did it 3 days a week, and I followed the ADA diet. And at the end of that 3 months, I rechecked. I was a little bit more pre-diabetic, and I gained 3, 4, 5 pounds. And that was the epiphany. That was like, okay, you know what? I don't know a damn thing about nutrition, and neither do they. Because very often, your doctor, when you say, oh, doctor, I'm trying to follow this plant-based diet, but my acne just won't get better, the doctor does not believe you. They're like, yeah, you know she's eating bacon and whatever. She's not doing what she says. But I live with me. I was there every day. I was the one drinking those fruit juice smoothies and eating that whole grain bread and not eating the bacon and draining the fat. I got a George Foreman grill so to drain the fat off. That's how stupid I was. I thought, that's it. Oh, drain the fat. Ah. Yeah. And so then I read 3 books, Dr. Atkins' Diet Revolution, the Paleo Diet by Lauren Cordain, and the Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson. And those 3 books were exactly backwards to everything I was taught. But I had just done a 3-month experiment of everything that I thought I knew and had gotten fatter and sicker. So what would a common sense Tennessee boy do? He would go, you know, I think I'm going to do the opposite of the thing that didn't work. Because that's how we think down here. That didn't work, so I'm going to do the opposite of that. So I started eating lots of meat. And I got rid of the bread, got rid of the sugar, got rid of the grains, and the beans, and the vegetable seed oils. And after 3 months of that, I was down 30 or 40 pounds, and my A1C had come down, my heartburn was better at keto. Right? Keto's where I started, and everything was better. And I'm like, dang. And so that's where I started from, and that's why I started this, because here in Tennessee, like I was telling my new friends in the back, you would not take your car to a mechanic whose car would not start. We have common sense down here, because if you don't have common sense, you will get hit by a car. You know, in the city, the cars stop for the people. Here in the South, in the country, the people stop for the car because the damn car's bigger. It will win. So you don't just walk out like you own the... No. See, common sense. You wouldn't go to a hairdresser to get a haircut whose hair was janky. They're like, I don't think so. So I was a fat, pre-diabetic doctor going in and saying, you know, you need to lose a few pounds. How do you think that went here in Tennessee? I got immediate feedback. People be like, look at this button here. Because it was ready to pop at any time. They'd be like, okay, doc, I'll get right on that. I couldn't have that. I had to be consistent with what I was saying. That was completely inconsistent. That's where I came from. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
How do you cut through all the contradictory information? Calories count. No, they don't count. Eat more fat. Eat less fat. How do you? There's so many online gurus that tell opposite stories.
Sure. Yeah.
And I know that people are trying to
Yep.
to build the presence. So how do you find out really what is the truth?
So before I was a doctor, I was an animal biologist. I got a degree in animal biology, undergrad. And so I looked at the animal biology. And the first clue is, in the wild, when an animal is eating its species-appropriate diet, there is no such thing as obesity. It doesn't exist. There's no chronic diseases. There's no chronic stuff. You live 100% healthy up to the day you get eaten. That's how it is with wild animals. But when we take these same animals and we put them in captivity and we feed them kibble, they get fat, they get diabetic, they get cataracts, they get kidney failure, they get literally everything that we get. Cancer? Yeah. Right. So that was the first clue. And then something, I can't remember. It was Dr. Michael Eads had a video. He was talking about the Egyptians They were known to other cultures, and they literally called them bread eaters. That was wherever the tongue was, that's what they called them. Because the Egyptians ate the exact diet that the American Heart Association tells you to eat today. It's the exact diet. There was no red meat. They used the cows to pull stuff. They didn't eat them. They had fruits and vegetables, tons of grain. They were literally called the bread eaters by other countries. They all had man boobs and pot bellies. And so in Egypt, it's very dry, very arid, and very hot. And so you kind of naturally mummify anyway. But then they additionally, unless you were a prisoner or a pauper, you got at least some degree of mummification. So we've got tens of thousands of these Egyptian bodies that are mummified. And you can CAT scan them. And you can do an MRI on them. And they've got horrendous heart disease, horrendous arthritis, terrible cavities in their teeth. They're shorter. They had less muscle. You can tell that by the muscle attachment on the bone. They were just fat, miserable, slobby people. This is well known in archaeology and anthropology. So then I kept digging into the paleoanthropology, and I found out that there's this test called a stable isotope analysis that you can tell what somebody ate by the strontium and other elements in their bones. They could have lived 100,000 years ago, and you can tell, did they eat C3 plants or C4 plants? So that'd be the difference between wheat or sorghum, corn versus other. You can tell that. You can tell whether they ate mostly seafood or mostly animals running on land. And what they found is that more than 15,000 years ago, if you watch a lot of my videos, you know that time period keeps coming up. And that's because that's well before the agricultural revolution. And I call it the agricultural de-evolution, or the agricultural disaster, because that's when our food changed. And that's when we started being shorter and sicker and fatter and had our teeth falling out, living short, miserable lives and dying prematurely because of all the grain. But when you go back more than 15,000 years, guess what? There's not a single cavity in the fossils. They're 3 inches taller 15,000 years ago than they were 10,000 years ago. The agricultural de-evolution. Okay? We know what they ate back then. It was mostly meat. It was all meat if they could find it. If there wasn't meat, of course they would eat whatever up to and including the grass. But if there was meat, they always ate the meat. They ate the meat first. They ate every single part of the animal. There are archaeological digs where there are mounds of bones or mounds of shells so tall that the researchers initially thought this must be some kind of religious monument or something. No, it was just they were eating so many damn animals they had to pile the bones up somewhere, and so they had a bone pile. That's where they put them. True story. For years they thought, oh, it must be a religious observance or something. We don't know what these huge piles of bones are. That was their junk pile after they'd eaten them all. Meat is your ancestral food. It doesn't matter your color. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter what country. Even if you're from Puerto Rico. Doctor, if you go back in time, I don't care if you're Buddhist, I don't care if you're Muslim, I don't care if you're Christian, if you go back in time enough generations, if you're from China, it doesn't matter. If you're from Australia, it doesn't matter. If you go back enough generations, guess what your people ate? They were carnivores. They were what anthropologists call super carnivores, meaning at least 70% of their food intake was from animals. If you lived by a river, it was fish. If you lived on the savannah, it was meat that you had to chase down. That is your ancestral food, no matter where you're from, no matter what your heritage is. There is no exception to that if you are, in fact, Homo sapiens sapien, which you, in fact, are. Does that help? Now, so when I took all that and put all that together, I'm like, so a question would be, well, are we still Homo sapiens sapien? Yeah. Just like we were 100,000 years ago? Yeah, no doubt. Inarguable, because you can still pull DNA from the teeth and from deep in the bones from 100,000 years ago. We got the same DNA. We're the same animal. Okay? We've got the Egyptian example. They're literally eating the diet the American Heart Association tells you to eat. And they were pitifully unhealthy. So that obviously is not the answer. Right? So when you're trying to feed an artificial diet to a species, in this case humans, and it's not their ancestrally appropriate diet, you wind up getting caught in little bullshit whirlpools like counting calories. You wind up getting caught in little weird things like that just really in the big picture, anybody, how many in here have been like, I used to count calories religiously. Now I literally laugh at people who count calories. It's just like it's like believing in Santa Claus.
Easy now, I like him.
It's just like believing in Santa Claus. It's like you can never truly know how many calories are in this avocado.
Right.
You can only estimate it plus or minus 20%. You can never know how many calories you need for your daily need. You literally cannot calculate that unless you go live in a metabolic lab for the rest of your life. That's the only way you can know, because if your body temp goes up half a degree, that increases your calorie needs. Calories are not how any food is measured. And remember back to the animal biology part. How many animals in the wild have got their little Weight Watchers book and they pull it out and look at it? Now this is clover, so how many calories? None? But yet there is zero obesity in wild animals. And you may not know this, but we are in the wild. We are wild animals. And Dr. Kiltz is right. We have domesticated our own self. But we're still, this is our new wild. Welcome. That doesn't mean that you have to eat the kibble. Right? You can be smart enough to not eat the kibble because you're still a wild animal. When we're truly domesticated, then you will eat the bugs and you will eat the kibble and you won't have any choice. And I hope there's enough liberty-minded people in this room that we never, ever allow that kind of thing to happen. More? Okay, any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Dudes and chicks.
You don't know, sadly, half of what I've learned just from watching you or whatever.
Right.
Where do we find, and I've got your book and, the lab results and things, where do we find quality advice about how to tweak and do things for ourselves as we're in our process?
So there is a website, the Society for Metabolic Health Practitioners. And they have a database of doctors all around the world, all around the country, who understand a low-carb, keto, carnivore diet. It's worth a 2-hour drive to see one of those folks if you need a doctor. Now, as years go by, am increasingly coming to the conclusion that, maybe we don't need a doctor every 10 damn minutes for every little thing. Maybe we can just take care of our own stuff most of the time. Like I said earlier, if you've got a bone sticking out, go see your doctor. If you got a 3rd-degree burn, go see a doctor. If you're on death's door, go see a doctor. Modern medicine is great in certain situations, but if it's a chronic condition, I can promise you that their answer is going to be to whip out the prescription pad and put you on a chemical toxic suit from a pharmaceutical factory, probably made in China. And that's their solution for you. That's it. That's the best they got. So, do you need a doctor? Or can you just go to your regular doctor here in Huntington up the road and just hope that they don't mention diet, and you can use them to order tests, and you've got the Common Sense Labs book so you can say, look, I need you to order my fasting insulin. And if the doctor refuses, says, I don't even know what that is. What would I do with that? I don't even know what that is. That's when you say, okay, dude, we need to talk. Just because you don't know what something is doesn't mean it's not important. Let me turn to page 14 here in Common Sense Labs, and I'll read you why Dr. Berry says you need to order my insulin. Doctors don't like when you do that. It hurts their pride. Okay? You only have to do that once. And then from then on, they'll usually say, whatever you want, write it down and order it. Because remember, they're pushed for time.
Yep.
They don't have time to argue with you. And just say, I tell you what, put in my medical record that I asked for this test and that you refuse to order it. And I'm afraid, I've got a family history, and I'm afraid that I have a health problem, and I need this test, and you refuse to order that. Would you please write that down in my permanent medical record and give me a copy of that on my way out? You say that one time, you either get kicked out, but if you don't get kicked out, then whatever you want to order in the future, you just write it down and we'll order it. And then that fixes that. Now you've got somebody who will order your labs that you need. If you need a refill of something, they'll refill it for you. If you need a test run, they'll order the test. What else do you need them for? Think about it.
Golf.
Golf. You can play golf with them. Yes. Exactly. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
What do you think about the new NAD rush that's out in the world right now?
NAD plus, the supplement?
Any of it?
Yeah.
It's a rage.
Yes, and there's so many rages out there right now. This supplement, that supplement, oh my God, NAD, NADH. I could just go on and on and on. Did we have any of that 50,000 years ago? Were we all healthy without exception? Did we all live 100% full bore until the day we got eaten? Yeah. Now, if you're eating a high-carb, junk diet full of grains and sugar and vegetable seed oils, some of these supplements might help you. But if you start with the food first and get the food right, get it proper, and keep it proper, 99% of the supplements become just like 99% of the prescription medications. They become worthless, useless background noise. And you start to chuckle when you see the supplement ads. Oh, this berry that was grown in the butt crack of a monk on the Himalayan mountains. Oh, you're like, what is wrong with people? That's dumb. Right? Does that make sense? 99% of that stuff is complete bunk. Just like 99% of the drugstore drugs are bunk. You don't need them if your diet is proper and you're living a proper human life.
Good.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
How about carnivore pregnancy babies?
Carnivore, pregnancy, breastfeeding, and what about little toddlers? They can eat a carnivore diet. Let's all get in my time machine and let's go back in time 50,000 years. We got us a little pregnant woman here. She's 17 years old and pregnant. Watch it. And her spouse, I don't know if they had weddings back then, but her little person, her little guy, she's like, I'm hungry. And he's like, okay, I'm going to run to Kroger and I'm going to get you some of those little crackers that you like. No. She ate meat. She ate meat every day. She ate as much meat as she could get her hand on. She ate the organs. She ate the fat around the kidneys. She ate the fat behind the eyes. She ate all the connective tissue. You know that gristle in your steak that you push to the side of the plate and say, ew. She ate that too.
Yep.
She ate it all. Now, she has the baby, and now she's breastfeeding, because that was what babies ate back then. That was all they ate. There was no other option, thank God, or we'd probably be extinct as a species. Also, remember that all breast milk is raw milk. Right? What did she eat? Did her husband run up to Sonic and get her some French fries? No, she ate the meat. She ate as much meat as she could get her hands on as often as she could. And she made miraculous breast milk for her miraculous baby with that. Now, the little baby is growing up, about 8 months, got 4 little teeth, starting to reach and grab stuff and put it in its mouth. And she runs to Winn-Dixie and gets him some of those little crackers and gets him some Cheerios. No. The first solid food that went in that baby's mouth, there is no anthropologist that will argue with this, was meat. The first bite of solid food that went into the 6, 7, 8 month old's mouth was meat. If you lived by a river, it was fish. That was what they ate. There was no different diet for pregnant women or different diet for breastfeeding women or different diet for little babies. We all are carnivores. We are super carnivores by definition. The textbooks are very clear about this. At any age, from 6 months when you're old enough for solid food up to 106, you are a carnivore. If you want some plants, that's fine. You can eat them if you can tolerate them, if they don't cause inflammation. But if you can't tolerate them, you can eat nothing but beef, butter, bacon, and eggs and live a long, healthy, vigorous, vibrant, dangerous life. Let's stop right there. What do you say?